Excellent. So Sayantani, when I was looking back and I was thinking about tonight and you coming on, and I still can't believe that you graduated in the class of 2017. It really does feel like it was like last year. So
I know, right? Still feel bad that I wish I could stretch one more year out of it.
I know. I know. It's so true. Well, thank you again for your time tonight. And don't worry. And if people have to drop off, we understand too. So, but we're just excited to have you here and talk about your experiences. Anthony and I had a chance to kind of catch up last night and talked about, her experiences and the program and the organization she's with. And I thought it was great to hear kind of her pivots in terms of coming into the program and then how she found that passion for like startup consulting and then ultimately what she's doing now. So Shanti, tell us a little bit about kind of your past and your experiences and then currently what you're doing.
Yep. So it's a pretty I don't know, to me it's a very fascinating story how my life goals simply changed within a very short span of time. So I graduated as a fashion technology bachelor, which essentially means something like a textile engineer back in India. And then I worked in a big garment company. If you guys know, like most of the manufacturing of textiles is done India, Bangladesh, Indonesia, those countries. So it's a very hot market and lots of good jobs available. So that's where I went and I worked almost for 2-3 years there and then didn't really like the culture. It's a very male dominated environment and it's tough. Like most people go in there with not a lot of education but grit and then they work their way up. And it was very it was difficult to come out of a fairly reputed school and get into that culture and survive. But I learned a lot. I mean, those were crazy odd hours. For almost 6 months, we were doing some implementation, and that went for like straight 21 days without holidays sometimes. And then it was a fun learning those. I think that was the time when I realized that, yeah, I could really push some limits. So it's helping me now to not give up when things go crazy, right? Then I changed my career path a little bit and went to an engineering company doing CRM consulting. And that was a completely different culture. It was an European company called Danfoss. And for them, it's like employees are the first priority. So they're very, very focused at lives, like work-life balance. You cannot work over hours. Like it was completely different than an Indian company. So after 4 years of that stint, I was like, I'm now feeling kind of bored, really want to get into consulting. And it seemed like a great fit that the next step is an MBA to get through that. So I came into Eisenberg with a very clear focus that I wanted to get into strategy consulting. And I was set in my goals. I came into the program. It was great, like the interview process and the first year had been tremendously helpful because it's a small batch. So we could all be very close to each other. I learned so many different things from all the batchmates because we could really collaborate at a personal level, not only professional. And that always helps. I mean, these are the people that are going to go out in the real world and in future probably help you in some way or the other. So having that bond created in a close-knit environment is very, very important for the rest of the life. And that's where I met my business partner. And at that point, I had no intention or even awareness of entrepreneurship because coming from India, which is very, it's very hard to start a business in India. There are a lot of administrative navigation that you have to do as a company, even before you get a good idea up and running. A lot of politics, a lot of hassles that you have to go through, right? So normal, regular people, they don't really think about entrepreneurship when it comes to a career option. It's almost like if you can't do anything else and that's the only thing you have left, you go for that, right? It's not a cool job. It's like, oh shoot, I can't do anything other than this, so let me just try this out. It's changing a lot. Definitely a lot of American and even European influences are going in there, and there are a lot more startups there now. But when I came here, it was still very, very new path for me. And then I came to Eisenberg and got exposed to Springfield Venture Fund and their program that they run in VVM, which is it's a pretty good accelerator program. Of course, nothing compared to, like, you can't compare that to Silicon Valley or even like New York City or Boston, but it's still very, very robust. They get about 1,600 applicants a year, which is it's a lot. That's a lot of startup, even some international. That's when I it was through another alum of Eisenberg, Jay Leonard, who graduated a long time back. And this was probably one of those same seminars that we are doing right now. He came in and he wanted to talk about VVM because he was running the show there. And he really needed some students to help out on defining the program and adding like some metric-based decision-making to choose these startups. They would just go through the profile and make a qualitative assessment, which is, if you think about the scale, it sounds crazy, right? 5 people looking at 1,600 applicants. There's really no way to do a good job unless you have like a really stringent process to follow. And that's what he wanted some of us to help him with. And we got into that. We started building the program, and it was just fascinating. To just look at all the startups, their passion. And that's when I realized that a lot of these people, they have great ideas. They have no business acumen or even not an access to a business person. And so many good ideas are just falling on the wayside because they don't have a team. They don't have the right people to execute. And it started bothering us almost. Like I had a couple of my friends from the MBA program. We were like a team of 5 people that were doing this. We started thinking, can we start something like a startup consulting? Of course, we didn't think through that, how the economics will play out. A startup don't have money to pay somebody to come in and help, right? And at that point, we were like, yeah, we'll just take equity and almost do it as a partnership. Like, we are at that point, we have the skin in the game. We'll help them get through this. And that's how I started working with my first startup, Social Worker Connect, back in 2016, 1 year before graduation. And it was a blast. We raised $100,000 from Springfield Venture Fund, met some really cool people, and then told them, like, they wanted us to join forces. And we went in and started helping them out, raise the money. It was a true partnership. It was not like consulting. It was literally getting our hands dirty and learning all the tricks of the trade, which means we had to learn about healthcare, mental health practices, a lot of IT. I found a person in India to do a lot of development for us, like the entire platform. So it was a mental health platform for referral programs. So we outsourced that in India. Of course, got a much cheaper rate than building it in US. A lot of long nights on top of the MBA program. And honestly, I wouldn't do it differently. At that point, I think Mike Famigate, he was like, why are you doing this to yourself? This is crazy. 21 credits and a startup, this doesn't work. Like, you're just going to lose it. And I guess it was great. Yeah, it was a stretch, but again, like, it was so much learning and fun. And we still have the startup. They had to pivot and become a mental health clinic, but now it's not a startup anymore. It's in full operations, and we are doing about 1,000 sessions a month, which is hopefully helping the community to some extent. And we're using a lot of those IT tools that we developed. So definitely a very forward-looking mental health practice than what is traditionally available. And during COVID, it really helped us out because a lot of these other mental health practices, they just couldn't go remote that quick. we were remote the next day because we just had all the processes built in to just overnight or start working from home. So again, like, you can't deny the effect of technology in today's world. Like, no matter what you do, you just need technology to help. That was a key thing. So I would definitely suggest try to take as many IT related courses, because those have opened our affinity towards using tech, like how you can leverage tech to help businesses. It's just, there's no way around it, and that's going to be even more prevalent as we go in passing years. So that was the health practice. It's still running. We're now, I take a very reduced role, because now that it's operational, we have been able to hire a lot of people and put them in the right job set, so we don't have to engage that much. So me and Adrian Beach, who's another alum, my business partner, we are kind of like strategic role. So we spend a couple of hours every week just talking through how things are running and kind of taken a back seat. The next thing that we did was, when we were doing Social Worker Connect, we realized that the startup's not going to pay any money. Like, sure, we have equity. At this point, we own 50% of that startup, but it's still, even with 1,000 sessions, we don't see any profit coming in, because anything that we generate, we put it on growth, because the whole point is to build it strong. But we have to eat, right? We cannot not earn anything. So that's when we decided that maybe we have to do something else to just keep the cash flow coming in. And we started a real estate company, which was in its own way pretty amazing thing. AJ had a background in real estate, so he knew what he was doing. I had no idea about real estate, and I had to learn all of that in a very quick span of time. But again, the financial courses, and honestly, like, more like all the different things that we learned through the MBA program, all add up when you go to start your own business. You might not see them separately, like as individual blocks that, oh, why am I learning, or where I'm going to apply it, but they all would slowly add up when you're trying to do something holistically. So when you go for your career option, I would say, like, I came with a very preset notion that I wanted to do strategy consulting. 1 year into it, my entire life changed. The outlook changed, the expectations changed, and I just started having a lot more fun in doing this than, I guess, like a very preset thing where I would go in and just do a certain part. Like, consulting is great, but at the end of the day, you're giving somebody a suggestion and then they're going with it and running with it. You don't really see the execution and the results unless you're deeply involved. And I thought I would enjoy it, but I think I enjoy the result driven role more. Like, I like touching and feeling and making decisions and actually seeing the impact of those decisions. So that's a key thing that I learned during the program. Is a lot of the professors said, it's great that you want to do this, go for it, but keep an open mind, because what if you land up doing something else and you end up enjoying it more? And that's kind of what happened. And it's been a pretty fun journey. But yeah, we still do the real estate. We have done almost 50 flips at this point.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But again, we leverage technology. So I have a team in India that builds all the database and all the background things, and I have multiple teams here that all kind of makes the boots on the ground, as to say. So honestly, I don't really do anything on the ground level. Not to say that I've never gone to a house and tried looking at it from end to end. You always have to get your hands dirty. One of the things that I'm pretty sure Professor Robinson is teaching you guys, that the front line, you go into the front line, what Toyota does is so important. Unless you know what the worker is doing, you can never solve their problem. It's so true. So I've been to some of these houses, talked to contractors. It was funny because I'm like this tiny Indian person. They've never met, like, it's mostly very white, American, bulky looking middle-aged men, and they're like, okay, we have to listen to you talk about house when you have no idea what you're talking about. It like construction in India is completely different, but that was a journey in itself, and it finally all came together. So yeah, again, like that's kind of the cash flow that we have right now. That's where the money gets generated, and then we put that money either into a startup or keep ourselves alive while we are doing this. But the most fun project that we have right now is our third startup, which is a science or a technology startup that we actually got from Eisenberg. So the IELTS program is something that started in our batch, and I'm just so proud of it. It's a great program. We were the first batch that almost like the experimental batch that went and did that, and it's a great place to see all these different technologies that are coming out of UMass. It's actually sad that there are so many more potential there, but we translate a lot less than what Harvard, MIT, or even UMass Boston does. Like when I say less, it's really less. And some of these technologies are amazing with their potential that they're doing much more, and Berthium has been a pretty big help. They have been trying to foster the innovation around campus. So if you guys can get somewhat associated with that, the more you can, like, even if you go and talk to some people in Berthium Center and IELTS, you learn a lot because they do it every day. And it's its own challenge to do a science startup. That's how we met Solian in our first year. They just have something super cool. So they make conductive fabric. And when I say they, it's actually we at this point because we have invested in them, and we are the business arm. So we have like this big box, like chambers where we put fabric in, and there's a dry process of vapor deposition is what it is called, and we coat them in a way that you won't feel it, like it doesn't make the fabric any different, but it turns it into conductive. So when you put that in perspective, right now if you see a heated garment, there's always some wires running through it. That's how like metallic components have to be embedded to make textile electronic, which is crazy because I don't want to wear something that feels like a wire. Like I'm not wearing a Iron Man suit. I want to feel good and comfortable when I'm wearing something. But at the same time, I wanted to do other stuff with all the technological advancement that's coming. And that's the goal that we have. Can we transform textiles into truly wearable technology? And so far, it's been a pretty fun ride. We have raised about $1 million from outside parties. And again, when you put that in perspective for a science startup, that's not that much. That's like machines cost almost about the same. But we are going for our second round, and we have got an NSF grant and a SBIR grant. So last 2 years, I've fully focused on this. I had to learn everything about chemistry and engineering, and initially it was like, oh my God, are we going to even able to do this? But again, without learning it, you just can't talk to customers. It does not work out. So I was like, if I have to go to UMass and take one of Trisha's classes, and Trisha is our lead scientist, and she's still a professor in UMass. She heads the wearable technology lab. I told her, let me sit on one of your classes and learn this, because without learning, it's just not going to happen. So that's also a pretty fun ride, but I don't think we would have connected with them if not for IELTS. And honestly, if not for IELTS, they wouldn't be here today. They were ready to literally shut their startup down when we started engaging with them and revamped everything. So, but for an institution like, or the program that the MBA school ran with the innovation program, without that, this technology would be dead today and nobody would even know. So I think that's a very impactful thing that Eisenberg does. And I've not seen that in a lot of other schools. Like, sure, Harvard and MIT has a whole ecosystem where their engineers or their scientists are much more business savvy. For some reason. They probably fostered that. But for a state school, this is one of a kind program. Nowhere in the United States somebody does this today. And I think I'm really proud of that Eisenberg decided to take that step forward, and hope it will pave some path for other schools. Like state schools don't do good with innovation, not because they don't have the technology, but because it's just they don't have the push to drive these technologies outside of the campus. So I know.
Yeah, sorry, Sayantani. I think Graham has a question.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, I have many questions as always, but I am about this startup, these advanced materials startups.
Yep.
There are many, especially associated with IELTS, coming out of Western Massachusetts. What do you see as the challenges for them as you see them? You said it's about to shut down. Is it capital access? Is it ability to create sales revenue?
Yeah, I mean, for particularly Solian, I think the problem was there were Trisha and Morgan. Morgan was also like her PhD student, so they're two scientists. They're great at what they're doing in the lab. They have no clue how to sell their technology or even whom to sell. And it's not their job to do that. Like they shouldn't be able to do everything. Some people are good at that, but they're just rare. And honestly, Trisha is one of the scientists that can actually really give a good presentation and talk to people. But even then, like she's a full-time professor and she expected Morgan to do all of these other things, which Morgan is a scientist. She's not somebody that can suddenly go out for a sales pitch and talk to high-level investors and get them hooked onto the technology and talk in layman's terms. And that was the disconnect, and they just couldn't figure out the next steps. They just needed a business component to push them through. And usually how all science startups do is they write a grant, and once they get the technical grant, they hire the business people out. That's kind of the path everybody follows. But there's also a lot of science startups that don't make it, because what are your chances of getting that grant? A lot of people don't even know how to write a good business section of a grant. And if you see all these grants, they're asking maybe 20% technical and 80% business, because the government of the United States pretty much says, I'm ready to give you my money. Tell me how you're going to actually spend this money. Give me a compelling reason that if I trust you with my money, you're going to use it in the right way and not waste it. And to make that case, it's a business case. It's not a science case at that point. You have to tell them how you're going to make money using their capital, which is essentially free. And how is this going to help the country stay on top of innovation? How is this going to help a societal thing? And every grant has their own specific needs that you have to talk to. Like for NSF, they want you to tell what is the societal impact. For a grant like a military grant, they don't care about anything else but how this is going to be cutting edge, and US military is going to be on getting the best things in the world. So you just have to tweak your language. Technology is same, but when you're writing the grant, you just have to tweak those languages. It's very hard for people to, specifically scientists, to do that very specifically and well in a 15-page when all they want to talk about is how great their technology is. Because
where are there opportunities to pool resources to accelerate this ecosystem's capacity? And I mean, IELTS being a great example of something that you saw sort of from its inception. I'm also curious about your process with IELTS, generating momentum internally within the UMass system, and the specific steps you took. But two different questions there. So,
I think a lot of universities, what they do, or I've seen them doing, is they have an innovation center where they have this lab type setup where they have a lot of different machines, which again IELTS has, but they incubate early stage startup at the cost of taking some equity from them instead of charging them. Like UMass Boston has an incubator where we were planning to put our labs in. So it's a small area, but you have your engineering, like there are a lot of electrical help, a lot of mechanical help, a lot of labs where you can just show up with your stuff and say, hey, can you build me this? Like one struggle that we had was we had to build everything ourselves. And we are not proficient in building. Like literally, the first machine we built, half of that electrical work is done by my husband. He's not even an employee, but I had no other resource, and he happened to be an electrical engineer. So I'm like, this is it. You have to just do it because we don't have money to hire an electrical engineer today. And I can't go and take up, because of COVID, we couldn't get the UMass Boston location. But if somebody, if all universities has that capacity built where you can just show up with your stuff and say, can you come help with all these different pieces? That's the first thing that you need as a startup, because you can't, even if you're a scientist, you can't build everything to yourself unless you're a coder and you have an IT startup. That's a different situation, right? You can sit and write all the codes that you need to. But any hard science, or the deep science as they call it, is like all these processes and steps have to be taken. It's not just the technology. It's also imitating a lab that UMass has provided to the scientist outside of that lab, which is a production facility. Because the research lab, for example, that Trisha has, she can't utilize that lab to make prototypes for the company, because that's a conflict of interest. At this point, it's a company. Solian is its own company. It cannot simply sit and burden Trisha's lab. But to go out and take a new lab space and build all of that, that's where we needed $700,000. And that's a lot of money to raise if you don't have anything to show for it. We happen to be solving a really acute military problem, so they invested. A lot of startups might not be that lucky. But if UMass has or maybe not just UMass, maybe a 5-college program where it's outside of the UMass ecosystem, but it's still within the valley, and there is a common space for all the startups or deep science startups to go and utilize the space, and then they give out some of the equity in return, because equity is the only thing they have when they start out, right?
So you think like a private sector entity that is just closely associated with the 5 colleges?
Yep, I think Rise wanted to do something like that. I don't know why it never really worked out. I think that was the one in downtown Amherst. I can't remember the name of the venture capitalist firm. Kaya, or it starts with a K. They wanted to build a area like accelerator area, but they didn't have any machines. It was just co-working space. So it was a good thought, except it was never executed to a point where it's actually something could be utilized on that end. Springfield Venture Fund and VVM has tries to help people, but again, they just have co-working spaces. And then they put a clause on top of it that you have to be in Springfield. That's only when we'll invest. Honestly speaking, if you're in Massachusetts, any deep science, you would probably want to be around Boston, just because access to more resources, more intellectual manpower, a lot of young graduates that you're trying to hire. Like everybody in my company in Solian right now are undergrads. I cannot sell the role to them if I'm saying you have to come and live in Springfield. It's just not going to happen. They're excited because they're in Boston. So it's a lot of those things. But yes, a private sector, always a private-public partnership works out better than just a public partnership in these situations. But but IELTS is a great start. I mean, honestly, the first thing that these guys need to know is even their technology is translatable. A lot of people think that they have great technology, but they're probably 10 years out from commercialization. Somebody really needs to tell them that before they put a lot of time and effort into it, without realizing that the 10 years is not going to be easy 10 years. So, I mean, we have had startups in our first batch, like we had 15 startups. I think by the end of our first year, we told at least 3 of them that they should just it's not going to work out. There is no business case to be made, even though the science is super cool. Like there is no product that can be sold. It's more research oriented.
And that's hard news to have to deliver, but it's better to know it earlier on than to see it try to, fail further down the road.
Yep. We had one guy that actually said, thank you for doing this, because now I could have wasted 2-3 years of my life trying to do this without money. And now I can go and take up a job in Oculus, because I get it. My technology is cool, but anybody can come in tomorrow and build this once they get the idea. It was nothing. He was incrementally improving something that was already there. And it's great, but he can sell that to somebody that is already in the market, Oculus being the actual competitor. Can you go out and really take on a company like Oculus as a startup? It's a hard thing, right? So he got a job with Oculus. Great for him, right? I mean, I'm very happy for him, like coming out of PhD program. That's already 7 long years of your life. And then you spend another 3 years and then figure out that was all a wasted effort. That's hard. So
what do you see as
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, tell me.
As the biggest opportunities for Western Massachusetts to specialize, like obviously UMass is a leading school in AI. And where do you see the industry fitting in?
So you're asking that the computer program in UMass?
Yeah, or just across all of the different technologies and innovation taking place here. I one of the challenges for Western Massachusetts doesn't have quite as developed an identity as like Boston or New Haven. And where do you think we're particularly strong?
I think one thing that we keep forgetting, which UMass Lowell has done really, really well, is they leveraged on their expertise or kind of told the story of the area. Now, I'm not from Massachusetts, so I'm not very, very familiar with a lot of these geographical things, but I know Lowell was from Boston to Lowell, that track is the fabric or the textile track. Back in the days, that's where all the mills were. So what Lowell started selling was, we are in the textile hub. We have all these mill buildings that are now kind of dying after the textile manufacturing got shipped overseas, but we have a lot of available facilities, and we still have a lot of those manpower that had previously worked in textiles. And they started a fabric discovery center built on that story. So a lot of times people give money when you can tell a good story, right? So they leverage that. It's not like they still have a great, like all these factories are not still running. It's not operational. But at the same time, they talked about that story and leveraged it. I know Western Mass has a really high density of sheet metal workers and HVAC workers. There's a lot of equipment that can be manufactured in that belt, which I don't think people talk about that many times. And it's definitely cheaper than using a sheet metal person around Boston. And there are so many innovations around machineries right now. And I know Massachusetts is pouring a lot of money and a lot of capital into developing the industrial infrastructure again. And a key portion of that goes into manufacturing. And Western Mass has the capability. There are all these small sheet metal workers all around, all these small HVAC manufacturers. If they come together and sell their story that, hey, we have the ability to build you any equipment that you want, I think it would be a good collaboration. They can probably attract a lot of Boston startups that can then go there and, get their things built. Like right now for our equipment, I have nobody in Western Mass that I can find, but I have people that are talking to me from Utah, from Minnesota, like all these other states. I don't believe that they have better technology available or bigger industries available. I think it's just that Massachusetts is not marketed. It's a fragmented area where all these small players are playing, and they're not just marketing themselves well. They have their preset customers for generations, and they just consider, oh, this is just going to either go like this or will die. They're not thinking one step ahead of how to scale up and, tell their story well. So that's one thing that comes to mind. I'm pretty sure there must be other things in Western Massachusetts. I mean, Holyoke for another. I mean, I think it was a paper mill city. So there are a lot of manufacturing around here, which, with everything going on with China and the global supply chain, I think manufacturing is coming back to US. Like, for example, I can't buy half of my components in US because nobody makes them anymore. Even for military, we are dependent on China to send us our materials. When COVID happened, all the PPP came from China. That's ridiculous. Like, you can't be dependent on another country for your healthcare needs. That's like, wow, what's happening? It's just it's mind blowing to even look at that and feel bad. So, but I think if a lot of other people have started realizing that, and they're trying to bring manufacturing back. So maybe Western Mass can really play on that. That's a great advantage. We still have a lot of technical schools around, not just UMass, but like Western New England University. There are a lot of technical courses there. So we should have enough intellectual manpower to build a strong case and a strong story around us.
Got to break down some silos, it sounds like. I mean, with whether that be across the campus, whether that be across the area, I think breaking down the different silos and finding commonalities is really what it sounds like needs to happen in terms of, especially in Western Mass, but Massachusetts in general.
And the other thing, just because you mentioned that, Trista, what we realized when we were there, and I don't know if it had changed, the colleges didn't collaborate with each other. So, for example, like in Solian, I know I need an electronic component. It's great that we have conductive fabric. It's no use if I give somebody else the fabric without telling them how to hook it up. Like, what's the next step? It has to be still showcased as a product. UMass has a great computer science school. It's one of the best in the countries. And because the colleges never spoke, they never collaborated. It could have been collaborated within the university ecosystem. And by this time, we should have had a working relationship with somebody in the college of computer science, working closely with polymer science to develop a full suite of products instead of like one part of it. And that's just sad. I mean, why is IELTS only picking different like polymer science, chemistry, and biology? Computer science should also be part of the same thing. And potentially all other schools. They should all come together, work together, because there could be so many new product ideas that right now nobody's thinking about because they're not just talking to their counterparts.
So true. So true. Chanting, it sounds like, well, you've certainly had successes in real estate and different areas. And what, when you're first starting and you're looking at a company to start or invest in and kind of take off, what guides you in the sense of like, okay, this is a good fit for me? Because it sounds like, there's like a lot of learning curves. If I was to think about taking on, wearable technology, there's a lot to learn there. So how do you find like what your passion is, or do you look at the facts and make decisions based on market, or kind of what's your power there?
What we did always, and this is very personal choice, I don't know if that would work for everyone, but I really only look at the team. I don't care what technology they have, what kind of market they can serve. Like, those are secondary evaluation. But if I don't feel that the team is, or the SMEs, the subject matter expert, they really have to have a couple of components for me to work with them. They have to be very passionate and give, like all of these founders, they've given up everything to make this work. And I'm not,
Right.
again, I'm not saying that you should give up on your life, but the reason that they're successful is because they have given up a lot. And they're so passionate about these things that their sacrifices are actually pretty tall order. Like, for example, Ramon, who's the healthcare person, he gave up his DCU job 9 months before he could have become a permanent, like, I think for state employees, you have to work until a certain time before you get eligible for pension. He
Yep.
gave that up 9 months before his eligibility was up. That's
Wow.
a crazy sacrifice. And we told him that don't do it. And he's like, you know what? If I don't do it right now, 9 months, we can't survive 9 months on $100,000. The company is going to die, and I cannot keep up with both my job and the startup. It's not going to happen. So I'm going to do this. And we are here because he made that sacrifice. Same with, I mean, for Trisha and Morgan. Morgan didn't get paid for almost 3.5 years. She was literally living with somebody else here, free of cost, out away from her husband and family for 3 long years. And Trisha literally does UMass and Solian, so she's 80 hours a week, and that's a lot for a professor. Like, she could just sit at UMass and do her job and only do advice, but she knows that her advice is not going to mean anything if she's not here working in the mix of things. There's a lot of innovation still to be figured out. So the team is the only thing that I care about. Are they going to work as long as I am ready to work and commit to this? And if they do, the rest of this, they'll always figure out. Maybe it's this, maybe they can pivot and do something completely different. But a good team always figures out. They don't give up. They'll always figure it out at the end. And then, of course, after the team is set, again, like Ramon started with a referral program idea that didn't really go anywhere, but he kept pivoting and finally has now become a successful business. So the idea literally does not matter that much, not to us. So
it feels like there's with entrepreneurship in any sense, there's a lot of ideas, but then it's who's going to actually take the charge and lead it and understand the sacrifices that really means.
Yep.
I think everyone has the best of intentions when they first start out, and they're going to take this to market, or they're going to build this, or they're going to open that. But then the understanding that you've really got to give, 200% of yourself to what you're investing in, not only like financially, but emotionally, physically, just being a part of that experience. I don't think it's for everyone.
No, and a lot of people get into it and then realize that they can't sustain and they leave. And that's fine too. Like, you should know when you are ready to quit. Don't drag it beyond, like, when you know it's not for you, leave immediately, because lingering it's not going to solve any problem. And sometimes you have to take very harsh calls as well. Like, Ramon started with another business partner that did not have the same level of commitment, and we were the people to tell her that it's not for you. It went ugly, it went to legal battle, but we went through it because she was just not the right person. And you just have to be mentally prepared for all that kind of things. Like, a business, like when you're doing business, you have to do everything around it, not just, I'll only do operations, or I'll only do finances. Like, I do everything, because that's the only way you'll know how to survive it in the early years, and can hire the right people to do the things when time comes. So yeah, that's a lot of fun, but try it out once in your lives, because if not for anything, there is no better learning than going through that process. First off, you'll learn everything about a business. Of all things, now my battery died.
Oh no.
Sorry.
That's okay. I just couldn't tell if I was frozen or
okay. No,
that happened.
So yeah, I mean, absolutely do it once, even if it's for 6 months. I think it would help so much in realizing your true potential and what you want to do in life. Like, at least that was my thought. Like, I just wanted to get into this to see if this is for me, or what are the things that I would enjoy. I'm still liking this. I'm here. But if not, I know there are so many different things I can do if I just follow one of these companies or one of the paths within the companies. So that's a fun part. So if you can engage with any of the startups or a mini startup, absolutely do it.
Yeah, that's awesome, Sayantani. Thank you so much. I mean, I just feel like that's so much work and commitment. And here you are doing it multiple times over and over again.
It's just
So
so much fun that it's hard to give up. It's almost like drugs, except not bad for your health for most part.
it's true. One of my first boss, I remember out of undergrad, started an organization. He eventually sold it, but he was definitely that serial entrepreneur, like loved the process of just seeing it through to fruition, seeing it through to that point
Yep.
of being sold or doing well and then stepping away from it to start something else. But he said the same thing. It's about the process that they enjoy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you can't there's no way to know it unless you do it. So try it out. Again, what's the worst case? It's not going to work, but you learn so much that learning or that experience is worth probably 5 years of a big company experience for sure. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sayantani, and thank you everyone for joining us. And we're recording it, so we will definitely send this off to those who could not attend this evening. But thank you so much. It was great to see you too, and such a nice time to connect.
I know. Sorry again, late, but hopefully this was helpful to everybody. And if you guys want to reach out to me specifically for anything specific or overall, please feel free to email or send message through LinkedIn. Trista, you have my email, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I can send that out if you'd like to this group that's here.
Yep, that would be.
Perfect.
And I'm always here, happy to chat with anybody as from UMass Amherst, because I got so much from the school that anything that I can give back feels really good.
I appreciate that, Sayantani. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a good evening, and thank you everyone for joining.
Bye, guys.
Thank you very much.
Bye.